The following story contains suggestive dialogue, sexual situations, coarse language, sequences of flashing lights, which may affect photosensitive viewers, un-PC themes, sexist, racist, homophobic topics, cynical storytelling, nudity, STD, STI, and STFISs. Listener discretion is outright demanded. Sllik Yssup by Daniel Morris. Tuesday, March 16, 2004, 3:32 p.m. Man, it was all good just a week ago. It was all good just an hour ago. It was all good a few minutes ago before I picked up that fucking phone. I thought it was a cold, the flu at worst. So this may be the end of everything, but I'm still deciding. So anyway, I don't know what to write, if I should write, or if anything even matters. Fuck it. Pretty Tony must have looked at everything in that little pale room except down into the eyes of the doctor, nurse, clinician, disease expert person who was bent over at his exposed groin. His eyes stopped at the clock above the door. It was 11, big hand on 1, small hand before 12, almost 12, so nearly 2. It was 1:56-ish p.m. Take a deep breath, she said, her hand firmly gripping his sensitive sex stick. He was doing the opposite, holding his breath, trying to block everything out, including the uncomfortable pleasure of being touched, even if it was clinically by a professional. Then out of nowhere, a razor-sharp, dick-piercing pain shot through his entire being. The nurse quickly pulled the Q-tip out of his urethra, her movement almost as reactive as his. His fist clenched the empty air where her hand had been. He glared at her, eyes full of anger, but that's all he dared to do. After all, she had him by the balls. Okay, she said, placing the evidence in the bag, grabbing another long Q-tip. One more time, deep breath. This time he opened his mouth and swallowed all the air from the room as he clenched the nearby counter. 11:45 a.m. Slick Rick was walking downstairs behind a beautiful specimen. Thin, but so big you could see it from the front. Pretty Tony was about to leave, hand on the door, when he stopped to stare. He glanced over her shoulder at Rick, and they shared a knowing smile. Suddenly, a light pat hit his left shoulder. Really, dummy? The one chick said, noting their machismo bond. Oh shit, Pretty Tony had forgotten she was there. He opened his mouth, but what could he say? Slick Rick closed the door behind the three of them just as he got a call from Queen Bee. Outside, the beautiful specimen walked to her car while Tony headed toward his. You ain't coming over? The chick asked. Baby, I got shit to do, Tony replied, doing his best pimp impression. Where are you going? Luckily for Tony, he was still in pimp mode, so he didn't get caught off guard. Baby, listen here, don't you ever ask a grown man where he's gone, you feel me? She rolled her eyes and began walking to the car, but Tony continued. When we together, we together. When we apart, baby, know what I mean? Let me miss you, know what I'm saying? I can't miss you. One chick was already in the car, out of earshot. Sunday, March 7th, 2004, 11:23 a.m. Slick Rick was sketching in his pad. His muse lay on the bed ass up, sleeping comfortably like she owned the damn place. She was a dandy specimen. The sunlight sliced by the blinds draped over her back in glowing stripes. As Rick used his thumb to smear and blend the shadow, he imagined how it would look as a painting that was in color. Nude chocolate skin contrasting with his silk ribbed bed sheets. She was thin, her butt like the mountains of Hawaii rising from an ocean of smooth skin. He noticed his knee was bouncing because he had to pee. A few more quick smears and then he jumped up, racing to the bathroom. The sensation felt like lava burning through his urethra. But when he looked down in the toilet, it was just urine. Back in the room, he stared down at the beauty. This bitch done gave me something, he thought. He threw his hand at her gluteus, waking her up with a powerful smack. Get the fuck out, he said. Thursday, February 6, 5:23 a.m. Rick rushed into Princess's side of the duplex, leaping 2 stairs before his mind replayed a mental snapshot from a split second ago. She was sitting on the couch in the dark. He leaned over the banister, trying to catch his breath, forcing inhales and exhales through his nose to stay quiet. "Where's the light?" he asked. "The bulb is out." "Princess, don't start, Rick." In the moonlight, he could just make out her bare, burnt umber leg crossed over her knee, bouncing angrily. "I already know about you. It's my fault. Just go back over and tend to your company." No, don't touch me. You can't touch me. You got her all over you. Don't sit on my couch, Rick. Just go next door. Go. I don't want you here right now. You're dirty. Her heel drummed rapid thuds against the carpet. After one last stomp, silence. In that void, Rick's ears picked up the distant sound of college kids partying down the street. The heavy, brain-numbing quiet between them felt much, much closer. "Do you want to talk, Rick?" Princess finally asked. "Then go next door, get some sleep, and we could talk in the morning." It's better if we talk in the morning." "No, I can't have you here with that stink on you." "What?" "Yeah, okay, do that then." "What?" No. "Because I don't want you using my shower, Rick." They compromised. He used her shower, and afterward, they talked in her bedroom. It was emotional. The conversation lasted until the sky lightened by a shade or two. Against her better judgment, she made love to him before he fell asleep on her stomach, listening to what was growing inside. At 5:03 a.m., Sllik Rick stumbled into his side of the duplex with Miss Thang. She relieved him of his bothersome shirt, and he looked down at her, confidently smiling. His bedroom was all the way upstairs, and he rented a perfectly fine living room that they were standing in right now. He laid her down, playfully nibbling at her clothed breast. She giggled. Keeping close to her, he slowly moved further down south. After licks and sucks caused her to shake, he stopped and mounted her, pressing his taut, naked organ into her quivering crevice. There was a knock. Rick turned mid-thrust to see Princess frozen in shock. After a moment, she picked up her jaw, backed away, and left. He prioritized his emotions, first focusing on the pleasure, finishing by spilling onto the carpet. Then, he acted on his guilt, dressing and running next door. At 11:12 p.m., Sllik Rick sat on the couch at Queen Bee's crib and listened to her belly aching. "You got Princess pregnant while you were fucking me," she said. "You got QT pregnant while you were fucking me. Now you're fucking some other bitch? Babe, I'm fucking you? I'm fucking you, babe? I hope not. I hope I'm more than just a convenient fuck for you, Rick. Sometimes I don't know. Are you using me?" Shut the fuck up with that bullshit, B." His cheek bubbled against his eye, annoyed. "Can you tell me? Can you say, babe, I'm not using you?" He tried to zone her out and focus on the blaring one-eyed devil. She stood in front of the TV. "Babe, you can't do that for me?" "B. Get out my way, B." "You can't do that?" Her voice cracked, tears welling up. He leapt off the couch, catching her by the throat. She stumbled into the 32-inch, her huge bottom tilting it. She continued talking, her voice distorted between his fingers. He spoke to her through clenched teeth, his words sharp and violent. Each time she chattered, he tossed her. Every time she nagged, he threw her. He flung her onto the bed, clashing his chops against hers violently. The nagging melted into moans. After a good dicking, she was asleep. Rick got up, grabbed her car keys, and left. 7:56 p.m. In Sllik Rick's room, the other chick was clawing at his back as he whispered sweet bullshits into her ear. The news played on the television, and his 20-disc CD player was blasting Sexual Healing. His phone rang with the Lil' Kim's Crush on You ringtone. "I gotta get that," he said. "No problem," the voluptuous vixen vocalized. She took an extra long puff off of the sticky icky and placed the smoking blunt on a nearby ashtray. Then she pulled away and directioned him to his back. Climbing on top of his nude yellow member, she reached for the phone and handed it to him. Once he had it, she grabbed the blunt, put it to her lips, continued the action right where she left off. Thorough. "Yeah?" he answered. Rick, okay, firstly, I want to say that you are in no way indebted to me in any way, shape, or form, but the least you could do is grab me a gratita from Taco Bell on your way back with my car? Okay, he managed to get out as the girl rocked on him. She put the blunt to his lips so she could ride him more efficiently. Her lush curves flopped rhythmically on and off his groin, making him lose focus on the conversation. Shit. The other chick smiled. Rick, what are you doing? Queen Bee questioned while the other chick pumped harder and faster. Let me call you back, he shouted, climaxing into her with an ejaculation of swear words. The other chick grinned triumphantly. She made him come while he's on the phone with his girlfriend. That's scandalous. She swayed delicately, absorbing every single drip. Rick's senses slowly returned. The smell of sex, marijuana, and sweat filled the room. She lifted off his cork, spilling champagne onto his public hairs. His head turned toward her as he opened his bloodshot, satisfied eyes, and a beaming smile spread across his face. She looked back at him, content. You gotta go? She asked. He nodded. He did. As he got up, he took one last puff from the damp, chronic-filled cigarillo and placed it on the ashtray. The black hue half moved to turn off the TV when a sharp, delightful tingle shot through his body like an aftershock. Shit. That was the best I've ever had in my fucking life, he said with a stretch as his eyes landed on the phone. The phone. He saw that Queen Bee was still active on the display. Afterward, back at their half of the duplex, Pretty Tony was in his room with the one chick and Sllik Rick was in his room with the other. It was 7:45 p.m. I can't have kids, the one chick said, knowing that Tony had no condom. His lust-struck apex was nestled into her sex hole. All he had to do was push. She reached down and teased his main vein, swooshing it around in her warm vaginal juices. Tony rested on his elbows, eyes closed, thinking about the decision he was about to make. If he lost his untouched title, he would lose a bit more of his individuality. Why not? He asked her. He had no reason to believe this bitch. They just met a few hours ago. What could she possibly say to convince him? I don't know, the doctor just said I couldn't have kids. That'll do. He leisurely lunged into her lubricated lusciousness, beginning his downfall. Thursday, February 5th, 2004, 2:45 p.m. Sllik is on his way over with two chicks right now. One is his ex, or maybe some girl he used to screw or something. The other is, I don't know, he says some like artsy type he think I might be into. It's my first double date. Who am I kidding? It's my first date in general. I figured I'd write this down so one day I can look back, rewind time, and play life backwards and get to certain points and be like, oh, okay, that's why this happened and that's why this happened. Especially if Rick is right. He thinks I'm going to lose my virginity to this chick. Sllik Yssup.